Hello guys, welcome back. My name is Nathan and today I'm going to be making my final 2022 Stanley Cup playoff predictions with the full bracket challenge and everything. Now, when it comes to the 2022 NHL Stanley Cup playoffs, we got the whole season over and done with finally, so we can now look forward to the playoffs. But when it comes to the first round, the second round, third round, Stanley Cup final, which teams do I see getting past the first round and which team do I eventually see winning the Stanley Cup? Watch till the end for all my predictions and picks, and make sure you hit that subscribe button if you are new. 50% of the people that are watching are not subscribed, so hit that subscribe button for more hockey content just like this. So my bracket is going to be called Grab Bracket, and we're going to go straight into it with the round one predictions. Let's make our picks, and let's start off the bracket challenge. The first one I want to start with, we're going to go west and then go to the east in the first round. The first matchup we have is between the Colorado Avalanche and the Nashville Predators. This is a series that I thought it was going to be Nashville and Calgary for the longest time, but with Nashville choking that lead against Arizona, the Stars get the first spot in the wild card race and will also face the Flames. But I think for this series, it really all comes down to the goaltending. If UC Saros is healthy, I think the Preds have a chance in this one, but if UC Saros is out of the series like some reports suggest, I think Nashville is absolutely cooked. In my opinion, I still think Colorado wins the series either way, but I'm going to assume that UC Saros is out for the series. So in my opinion, I'm going to predict the Colorado Avalanche to win this series. Not the Nashville Predators. Yeah, the Colorado Avalanche. The number of games, we'll go into the number of games at the end, but I think for Colorado, I think they're going to win in 5 games. Going on to the Minnesota Wild versus the St. Louis Blues, and who will face the Avs in the second round. This series, in my opinion, is going to be such a bloodbath. Minnesota just barely got the home ice advantage in this one as well, having just a really great streak since the trade deadline. In my opinion, even if St. Louis had the home ice advantage in this series, I still probably would have picked Minnesota for the plain and simple facts that I just trust Fleury more in a playoff series right now than Binnington or Billy Husso. And the 5-on-5 offense, especially for Minnesota, has been much more consistent than St. Louis. In my opinion, I think Minnesota wins this series, but I do think it would be at least a 6 or 7 game series at the same time. And I do still think St. Louis has a strong chance of winning it. Then going on to Calgary versus Dallas, and my favorite team, the Dallas Stars, versus a very strong Calgary team. This is going to be another series, another physical, hard-hitting series throughout. It's going to be a fun one to watch, though, for sure. But I do think, even as a Stars fan, I would love to be biased here. I still think I need to pick Calgary. I see them winning in about 6 games, and although I could see the Stars taking a couple of games away from Calgary, at the same time, I think the Flames are just such a strong roster. Their goaltending is at such an elite level, and their overall productivity is so consistent. I see them doing great in this year's playoffs and getting on to the second round. Then going on to Edmonton versus LA, I ended up doing a playoff preview for this series on the Sports That You Do channel, so go check that out for a more detailed analysis. But I do think Edmonton wins this series in 6 games, although I do think the Kings have a very solid chance of winning a couple of games in this one, and maybe even winning this series. At the same time, I think for Edmonton, the goaltending has been extremely hot with Mike Smith being great over these last couple of weeks. The defense has been pretty underrated, and the team in general has been just awesome to watch under Jay Woodcroft. I think they will get to the second round again, finally, and have some playoff success there. For the actual number of games in these series, again, I'm going to pick 5 for the Avs, 6 for the Wild, 6 for the Flames, and 6 for the Oilers. So let's submit our predictions for the Western Conference and then go on to, I guess, the second round. I guess we can already do that, but I'm going to go to the Eastern first round here, and we're going to go and see all the teams that get into the second round. Next up, we have a matchup between the Florida Panthers and the Washington Capitals, and these couple of spots were really interesting because we knew the Panthers were probably going to be in that first spot in the East for a while, but those wildcard spots were kind of in fluctuation, but the Washington Capitals will be the team facing Florida, and I think this is a really interesting series. 2 teams that have had no playoff success first round wise in the last couple of years, and personally for me, I think Florida does win this series. Now, there was a lot of ways this could have gone. They could have faced the Boston Bruins. They were at one point going to be facing the Toronto Maple Leafs. Even the Tampa Bay Lightning were a possibility, but in my opinion, Washington is the best opponent for Florida personally to face. That's another team that has had their struggles playoff wise, even if they have a lot of experience. but I do think for the Florida Panthers, this is going to be a good test, decent defensive team that I think Florida is going to win against and hopefully finally get over that first round hump. Speaking of first round humps, let's go on to the Toronto Maple Leafs versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. This is a series that I see a lot of Leafs fans actually being pretty confident in, and personally for me, I still think there's a chance that Toronto wins this series, but in my opinion, it all comes down to the goaltending. Do you bet against playoff Andrei Vasilevskiy? And especially, do you think a guy like Jack Campbell, who, yes, has been better recently, but do you think Jack Campbell can be better than Andrei Vasilevskiy in a playoff series? I'm not sure about that, and that's my main factor of looking at these two teams. Even though I do think Toronto maybe could be stronger in terms of energy and overall attack, at the same time, Tampa has that playoff experience, they have that pedigree, and I think they have the better goaltending. And I do think it will go 7 games, but in my opinion, I still pick Tampa. As long as Toronto is in this spot, I'm still going to pick another team like Tampa Bay. But I will say, if Toronto does get past the first round, it could be like a Washington second round thing. Like once they get past the first round boogeyman, they can finally start to do some damage and could go even farther than that. Now going on to the Carolina and Boston matchup, this is another one that I think is going to be extremely close. Carolina on paper is the much better team than Boston, but I do think for the Bruins, they have again that pedigree, that experience, and with Patrice Bergeron being a UFA after this year, I think that whole team knows that this might be the last shot to truly go after it. And I think the Bruins have been a really interesting team to watch over these last couple of months because of it. And in my opinion, even though I do like the Canes' chances in this series, the goaltending has also kind of been in flux when it comes to health there, and I think there honestly just might be a little bit too much inconsistency. They have been great as of recent, but I'm actually going to go for a pretty big upset, and I'm going to predict the Boston Bruins to win this series. Even though I do think it'll be a close one, probably 7 games, I just give the edge to the Bruins. I think their goaltending might even be better in this series too. I don't know. Whenever I doubt the Canes, they do fantastic. So Canes fans, you guys are welcome. Now going on to the Rangers versus the Penguins. This in my opinion is one that I have had a strong opinion about for a very long time. I'm just going to go out and say the Rangers are going to win this series in my opinion. To me, when it comes to Pittsburgh, the only way they might be better is maybe the consistency in that bottom 6 maybe, but I think with the Rangers and the trade deadline acquisitions they made with guys like Andrew Kopp, I think this is a team that's built a lot more for the playoffs than teams in the past, and if Igor Shesterkin can play even good enough, good compared to the rest of his season, in my opinion, the Rangers have such a strong chance of winning this series, and I think they will win it. Now going to the actual games itself, I think the Panthers win against the Capitals in 5, I think the Lightning win in 7, I think the Bruins also win in 7, and the Rangers, I'm going to predict a 5-game win, a series win for the Rangers, and a pretty easy win against the Penguins overall. The Pens, another team just like the Capitals that has just not had any success in the playoffs whatsoever recently. But next up, let's move on to the second round matchups, and we got a nice little one here in the Avs versus the Wild. Now, on paper, my gut tells me to just say Avs sweep, Avs in 5, but at the same time, I think Minnesota's going to be a strong opponent against the Avs, and I think we'll put up a very strong test. I know some people might say it'll be a 4 or 5 game series, but I'm going to say it actually goes 7 games, but I will say the Avalanche win this series in 7 and win against the Minnesota Wild. Now going on to the Calgary Flames versus the Edmonton Oilers, the Battle of Alberta, baby. You absolutely love to see it. In my opinion, again, this will absolutely be a bloodbath, but I do think this will be a strong goaltending matchup. It'll be a strong overall matchup, especially on those top 6s, Johnny Gaudreau versus Connor McDavid. You got other players like Matthew Tkachuk versus Leon Draisaitl and Zach Cashin. There's a lot of bad blood between these two teams recently, and I do think it'll go the distance all the way to 7 games, but I do see Calgary winning this, just with the depth that the Flames have and the consistency that they have too. I think they're much better built for the playoffs, their structure is much better built for the playoffs, and I think in a series, even though it will go a long way, I see Calgary pretty easily being the winner there. Now going on to the East, we're going to go to the Florida Panthers versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. In this series, this is a really tough one because, again, on paper, I would say Tampa has a strong chance, and Florida is obviously the up-and-comer in terms of the true Stanley Cup contenders, but just as a Florida matchup, we got that as well in the first round of last year's playoffs, and it was absolutely amazing. It'll be even better here, but thinking about it right now, I think I do go with the Tampa Bay Lightning just because of the goaltending, just because of the consistency they have. I just feel like Sergei Bobrovsky is a little bit too inconsistent for my liking, and I would love to be wrong. I would love to see the Panthers go all the way and potentially even win the Stanley Cup this year, but I just have a feeling that goaltending is going to catch up with them, but we'll see. Bobrovsky is really the main factor in this, though. And again, I just go with Andrei Vasilevskiy and his proven complete track record. Then going on to the next matchup here between the Boston Bruins and the New York Rangers. This is another one that I would absolutely love to see. And this is one that I think the Rangers have a chance at winning, honestly. But I will say, this is one that I would just go back and forth on. Looking at it right now, comparing the two teams, although I would love to see the Rangers get past the Bruins and Igor Shesterkin be fantastic, I feel like Igor might lose a little bit of steam in the second round, and I'm going to say the Boston Bruins win this series and advance on to the Eastern Conference Final, being the first wildcard team, but still being a strong playoff contender. So, as for the top four in the East, I have the Avs, or top four in the NHL. I got the Avs, Flames, Bolts, and Boston Bruins. I know some people might say the Panthers instead of the Lightning. Maybe some people say the Canes instead of the Bruins. But the way I look at it right now, that's how I see everything lining up. As for the actual conference finals now, between the Avs and the Flames, this, in my opinion, this is the big problem when it comes to the Avs, because if they are healthy and they get past the second round, I'm not sure if they're going to be able to be stopped. But again, that health is really the biggest question. Will the Avs be able to stay healthy for a complete and sturdy playoff run? And in my opinion, I just don't see it, especially with this past week. I think we've seen some of the kind of weaknesses in the Avs armor. I feel like the Flames are just a better team built for the playoffs. They're a team that's added a lot more grit, a lot more physicality, and I think by the West Conference Finals, I think Colorado is a team that might get just worn down, especially against teams like Nashville that are hard and heavy, teams like Minnesota that can bring that element as well. In my opinion, Calgary is going to be such a tough team to play against if you're Colorado, but again, it all comes back to that health, and especially Darcy Kemper. But at that point, I don't see the Avs staying healthy enough, and I don't see them continuing and keeping up with the physicality of Calgary, and I'm going to say the Flames move on to the Stanley Cup final, coming out of the West and beating the Avs, I'm going to say in 6 games. Now going on to Tampa versus Boston, this is going to be a just absolute war between these two teams, 110%. And personally, I could go back and forth on which team I see making it. But in my opinion, at this spot in the conference finals, this is where I think for Tampa, the wear and tear of these last couple of seasons are going to start to really show. You're going to find that eventually, where the energy and just the work ethic might not be as strong as years before. And even though I think on paper Tampa probably is the better team than the Boston Bruins, I feel like the Bruins are just going to have so much motivation. They're going to have so much going for them that I think this will go 7 games, and I'm going to go for another big upset here. I'm going to predict the Boston Bruins to go to the Stanley Cup final, beating the Bolts in 7 games and advancing on to the Stanley Cup final to face against the Calgary Flames. So again, this is a little more of an unconventional one, but with the NHL playoffs, it always seems to be crazy and unpredictable, and I think this is the right balance of still 2 very strong teams, but teams you might not expect to get there. In my opinion, Boston has been so great over these past couple months. The goaltending has been so consistent. That energy on that team is just different right now, and I think that'll carry on to the playoffs. Meanwhile, for the Calgary Flames, are just built, I think, to make a Stanley Cup run, and personally for them, I think the physicality and that consistency and the goaltending will take them up to that next level. But now going on to the Stanley Cup final and Calgary versus Boston, this is going to be an awesome matchup. It's going to be so much fun, so many big hits, so many big moments, great goaltending, fantastic scoring at the very top. It's going to be all we could want and more. In this series, though, I do see home ice advantage being a very strong part of the Calgary Flames series in the Cup final, and in my personal opinion, that might be what takes them over the top. Looking at this series right now, Calgary versus Boston, I'm going to predict the Calgary Flames to be the Stanley Cup champions in 2022. Yes, predicting a Canadian team is pretty foolish nowadays, but at the same time, I feel like Calgary is the best chance Canada has had in maybe ever. I feel like that's how well this Calgary Flames roster is built. That's how consistent they've been. That's how perfect they are for the NHL playoffs, and how perfect they are for a long run as well. In my personal opinion, I see the Flames winning this series in 6, and sadly for the Bruins, them having another unfortunate Stanley Cup final loss. And now going to the actual total goals scored in the final series, I'm going to say it's 28. It's just under 5 goals a game in total. I think it's going to be a strong defensive, strong and tight series series throughout, and I do see Calgary being on the other side of that. But those are just my opinions for the Stanley Cup playoffs this year. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys agree and disagree with. Who do you guys see winning the Stanley Cup, and how do you see your favorite team doing as well? Let me know all your thoughts down below. Let me know what I'm, again, wrong and right about. Make sure you share this video with your friends. Get it out to any hockey fans you guys know online. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell, drink some water, click this card up here for all my playoff talk in one playlist. My name is Nathan. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.